More than 11,000 climbers have reached Everest's summit, but according to the Himalayan Database, around 340 did not return. PLOS1, researchers found the risk remains near 1%, even as technology and logistics improve. The real causes? Consistent decision patterns just now coming into focus. Understanding them could shape the future of high-altitude safety. The most comprehensive record of Everest expeditions comes from the Himalayan Database, curated from the detailed logs of climbers and guides since the early 20th century. This archive, now maintained by Richard Salisbury, serves as the backbone for nearly all modern research on Everest risk. In 2020, a team led by Raymond Huey analyzed the outcomes of 5,324 climbers who set out from Camp 4 on the Southeast Ridge between 1990 and 2019. Their findings revealed a striking paradox. As technology, weather forecasting, and support systems have improved, the chance of reaching the summit has doubled, from just 33% in the 1990s and early 2000s to 67% in the years since. Yet the risk of not returning has remained stubbornly unchanged, holding near 1% across 3 decades. This pattern holds true even as supplemental oxygen, fixed ropes, and commercial guiding have become the norm. The data show that while more climbers are reaching the top, the underlying hazards above 8,000 meters, where the body can no longer acclimatize, continue to limit survival. The Nepal side, now the most popular route, accounts for the majority of these attempts and incidents. Researchers found no significant drop in the mortality rate, even as crowding and summit day traffic have increased. The evidence suggests that it is not simply bad luck or equipment failure that explains this persistent risk, but rather a repeating set of decision patterns that emerge above base camp. These patterns, now visible in thousands of expedition records, form the foundation for understanding the most costly mistakes on the mountain. The margin for safe decision-making on Everest is measured in hours, not days. The turnaround rule at 2 p.m. is a direct response to what happens when that margin is ignored. On May 10, 1996, teams led by Rob Hall and Scott Fisher pressed toward the summit well past the established cutoff, some reaching the top as late as 4 p.m. By then, a sudden blizzard swept over the upper slopes. 8 climbers, including Hall and Fisher, did not return. Survivors from that day described running out of oxygen, losing their way in whiteout conditions, and collapsing from exhaustion within sight of Camp 4. The lesson from 1996 is echoed in every modern protocol. If you cannot reach the summit by early afternoon, the risk on the way down multiplies. Data from the Himalayan Database and peer-reviewed studies reinforce this point. Over half, 56%, of all serious incidents above 8,000 meters occur during the descent, not the climb up. The pattern holds even as technology and guiding have improved. For every Sherpa who experiences an incident on the way down, 6 climbers do. The difference is not luck or strength, but experience with timing, pacing, and knowing when to turn back. Sherpa guides like Ong Dorje, who reached the summit early and descended before the storm in 1996, demonstrate the critical value of respecting the cutoff. The summit is optional. Returning safely is not. Every hour spent above the death zone without a clear plan for descent narrows the window for survival. Altitude is not just a number on Everest, it is a physiological threshold that tests every climber's preparation. Dr. Mike Harrison, a specialist in high-altitude medicine, has studied the effects of rapid ascent on cognitive function. His research, published in the BMJ in 2006, found that nearly half of non-survivors above 8,000 meters showed signs of neurological impairment, confusion, poor judgment, and loss of coordination. These symptoms often appeared before any obvious physical distress and could develop in less than 12 hours. The risk is not abstract. At extreme altitude, the body's ability to adapt is sharply limited. Sherpa climbers, who spend weeks at elevation and move between camps as part of their work, experience far fewer incidents than visiting climbers. Their acclimatization is not just a matter of genetics, it is the result of sustained exposure and gradual adaptation. In contrast, many clients on commercial expeditions spend minimal time above base camp before making a summit push. The data show a clear pattern. Shortcuts in acclimatization increase the risk of both high-altitude cerebral edema and pulmonary edema, conditions that can escalate rapidly and quietly. Dr. Harrison's findings stress that time at altitude is not negotiable. The difference between readiness and risk is measured in hours. Proper acclimatization protects not only the body, but also the mind, preserving the judgment needed when conditions change. On Everest, patience is as vital as strength. Ignoring the body's warning signs above 8,000 meters is a mistake with consequences that unfold quietly but relentlessly. Research published in 2006 found that when climbers slowed to more than 1.5 hours per 100 meters of ascent, their risk of developing serious altitude illness rose by 68%. This speed threshold is not arbitrary. It reflects the point at which the body can no longer compensate for the lack of oxygen, and early symptoms, such as confusion, headache, and loss of coordination, begin to appear. In the Himalayan Database, nearly 1 in 4 non-survivors had shown clear signs of neurological impairment before their incident. Yet these symptoms are often dismissed as simple fatigue or overlooked in the rush to keep moving. Sherpa climbers, familiar with the subtle cues of altitude sickness, are far less likely to ignore these changes. Their experience highlights a key lesson. Self-diagnosis is as important as any piece of equipment. Noticing a sudden drop in pace or the onset of unusual symptoms should prompt immediate action, whether that means stopping, turning back, or seeking help. Above the death zone, listening to the body is a survival skill in its own right. A summit push on Everest is rarely a solitary effort. In recent years, the number of climbers above 8,000 meters has quadrupled compared to the 1990s, as reported in the 2020 PLOS-1 study. On peak days, as many as 50 or 60 people may be moving between Camp 4 and the summit, all within the narrow window allowed by weather and oxygen supplies. This density creates bottlenecks at key points, most notably the Hillary Step and the South Summit, where only a handful of climbers can move at a time. Waiting in line at these altitudes is not just an inconvenience, it is a direct risk to survival. Even a delay of 45 minutes, as observed on crowded summit days, can extend a climber's time in the so-called death zone, where the body is already operating at its limits. The longer a person remains above 8,000 meters, the greater the strain on their oxygen reserves and the higher risk of altitude-related impairment. Research shows that these delays do not necessarily increase the overall death rate in a given season, but they do expose each individual to more time in dangerous conditions. The lesson is clear. Crowding above the South Col is more than a logistical challenge. It is a compounding risk that demands careful planning, awareness of timing, and the discipline to turn back if delays threaten the margin for a safe return. The profile of those attempting Everest has changed dramatically in recent decades. According to the 2020 PLOS-1 analysis, the average climber's prior experience on high Himalayan peaks has dropped by more than half compared to the 1990s. Today, most summit attempts are made as part of large guided groups, with commercial expeditions now accounting for the vast majority of climbs above Camp 4. While this has opened the mountain to more people, it has also shifted the skill balance. The same research found that climbers relying on guides are involved in incidents at more than twice the rate of those moving independently, 2.1 times higher, even after accounting for crowding and route choice. Sherpas, who spend far more time at altitude and have deep familiarity with the mountain's hazards, continue to experience far fewer problems. Their expertise is reflected in both decision-making and physical adaptation. The Himalayan Database and peer-reviewed studies consistently show that incidents among Sherpas are a fraction of those among visiting climbers, despite facing the same objective dangers. When researchers compared the patterns leading up to incidents, they found a remarkable consistency. 98% of serious events above base camp followed one or more of the same 6 decision points: turnaround time violations, descent, underestimation, inadequate acclimatization, ignored warning signs, bottleneck delays, or over-reliance on guides. These are not random misfortunes, but recurring patterns. The lesson is clear. While Everest's risks are real, the most costly mistakes are predictable and in many cases preventable through preparation, self-awareness, and respect for the experience of those who know the mountain best. Today, Everest's risk endures not from chance, but from choices. Data shows Sherpas' lower incident rates stem from deep experience and disciplined decision-making. Each summit season, the mountain reminds us, preparation and humility save lives. The real lesson? On Everest, knowledge remains every climber's most reliable safeguard. Share your thoughts below.